Looks like I'm the one blocking you from going back home. So I've planned two talks. I've planned for 8 minutes each, so 16 minutes, with 4 minutes of questions. But I just thought I'll shorten it by another 2 minutes. So if it's okay with you, I'll just wait for 2 minutes until so that we can get to the correct time. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start with talking about the AD Knowledge Portal, but I want to give you an overall context and a word of warning. I will rant at the end of this talk, and ranting, it's very cathartic for me. I'm going to talk about AD Knowledge Portal, but first I'm going to talk about Synapse and Sage. So who are we? We're a nonprofit based in Seattle, and we do open science with closed data. We shine a light on dark data that's locked away in different silos, making that more available, especially with healthcare data. We have a platform called Synapse that stores about 3.5 petabytes of data. We build portals on top of that. A large part of our work is on the unsexy part of science, which is cleaning data, wrangling data, curating data, governing data, and disseminating data. It's the thing that doesn't get you papers, but it's the people behind the curtain that makes all of this possible. And a lot of you are already in this room. So we do have scientific expertise on the type of data that we curate. We have technical expertise in how we build infrastructure, and we have very deep, almost 1.5 decades long governance expertise on how we govern data responsibly, especially now in the age of AI. And these are all the communities we support. And this is the Synapse portal where you can access or request access to the data. And we have lots of different modalities of the data that we curate and help curate. And we support communities to curate all of this data. And the amount of data has been growing. This slide is always out of date, so I'll tell Alberta to try and get this as a live shot of everything that's happening in Synapse today. So I'm going to give you two snapshots of how we curate data for the AD Knowledge Portal. By far, the AD Knowledge Portal, which is for the Alzheimer's disease, actually hosts one of the largest omics data repositories in the US, because a lot of the omics data comes and resides in the AD Knowledge Portal. It's graciously funded by the NIA, and we have a huge amount of programs that pull together every single data resource type, multi-modality resource types into this catalog, and you can request access to it for free. If you access it, you get access to all of the data, and you can analyze the data for the purposes that you seek. Primarily, the data is governed in a unified data use conditions, a data use certificate, which is a very innovative way of managing data access. Normally, when data contributors collect data, they have a set of set requirements, and these all differ with each other. One unique aspect of the AD Knowledge Portal is you request access to one data set, you get access to all data sets, which is quite unique, which means that you can innovate. If you come up with a new idea or new data modality you need to access, that is a great innovation for the AD Knowledge Portal. One of the unique things about the AD Knowledge Portal, and again, I feel like I'm doing a sales pitch, but I really don't, which differentiates us from other data repositories and trusted research environments, is that we are a true data broker. We collect data, we funnel data into Sage, curate the data, annotate the data, govern the data, and then release that data out to trusted research environments, to people who want access to the data, so the data flows out. Typically, data repositories tend to take data in, they get people to come in, and papers come out. What we do is essentially the person in the middle, the broker that makes sure data can flow across the entire ecosystem. So we have lots of integrations with Cavatica, Terra is being planned, and a few others as well. So that funnel of data coming in and data going out is an important concept to remember in all of the work that we do. So we have diverse specimens, of course. We have all of this data modeled as part of our data modeling work. We integrate multiple diverse data types, and we have different levels of processing, and some of that is also made available. Just very quickly to give you an idea of the data governance access, it's very simple. You register, you get certified access to, you pass a quiz to make sure you know how you interact with data. You submit an access request. That access request is reviewed. We review it, so we have a dedicated access and compliance team, and you get access to the data. Now, you can download the data. Typically, right now, the community is starting to push people to go towards secure computing environments or trusted research environments, but that is the direction of travel, and hence we have integrations with multiple trusted research environments. And this is the growth of the AD knowledge portal within the community, and we have a huge number of features that we have built around. So documentation, we have discussion forums, hands-on workshops. We do quite a lot of community engagement. This is important for a data repository to make data useful and reusable by the community. As part of that, we have a Dream Challenge coming up, and as some of you may know, Sage Networks actually power the Dream Challenges. So a lot of the Dream Challenges will run on top of our existing ecosystem. Please scan that QR code. There's a challenge that's going to be happening in the next few months. Please register for the challenge. This is a really cool way of just accessing some data and playing around and see what you can do with the data. So please use this opportunity to register for the Dream Challenge. I'm going to talk to you about the Elite Portal, which is slightly different. It's the same sort of idea. We curate a lot of data, but this is for exceptionally long-lived individuals. So people who live more than 90 years old. And this is really sensitive because as part of the HIPAA rules, you're not allowed to share that kind of data because you have protection for that long-lived individuals. So how do you govern that? How do you do that at a multi-jurisdictional scale? Remember, Sage and Synapse actually run across multiple jurisdictions. We have data in Europe under GDPR, we have data in the US, we have data in multiple different jurisdictions. And how do we collect that data? We know, for example, there are communities in Japan, there are communities in Italy who live a very long period of time. How do we integrate that data and run research on that? So that's the challenge. Again, same sort of idea, curating a lot of data, integrating that data, making that data available for governance. Governance then takes over, puts a responsible wrapper around that, and make that data available for downstream analysis. And the resources just recently started. We just had a new refreshed portal in April, and it's a growing resource. It's a resource around which a community is being built to try and use that data and the tools that we have. And we have a few featured data sets. We have the long life family study and profiles in non-human species as well. So we can compare and contrast not just human longevity, but also non-human longevity as well. Again, the same, you can notice a theme, right? We have a set recipe, a playbook, as it were, of how you do high quality data curation within the ecosystem. And we implement that playbook for project after project. And again, we have a challenge coming up very soon in fall. You can request access to the data, and you can, if you want to look at a cool digital pen data set and work out whether a digital pen, the way you write actually makes a difference as to how long you will live. This is a great way of exploring that. Now, here comes the rant, right? And the rant is not just about all of us, but also about Sage and also about everybody within the ecosystem. The rant is interoperability. The I in FAIR is the thing that nobody does because we don't know how to really do it, right? Findability, oh yeah, we've got DOIs, metadata, and all the rest of it. Accessibility, oh yeah, we've got governance and all the rest of it. Reusability, oh yeah, we've got papers, challenges. Well, not really sure about that. Oh, we will put APIs, that'll solve it. No, but if APIs don't really talk to each other, it doesn't actually work. So this is my big rant of the day. We have all of these platforms, FAIRDom, EBI. I'm picking names out of it. I don't mean any disrespect to all the platforms, including Synapse, right? We don't really interoperate with each other because we always build a building from scratch every time we get funding. Nobody cares about the roads. And what happens is that we build the entire building, we build a small little path along to the other side and a little bit to the other side because the funders actually tell us, well, we need to do that. But that's the problem. We don't have a good road network. So interoperability is the actual ility that makes all of the ilities look cool. it makes all the ellipses, supercharges them to make that available. And we've tried all of this before. A lot of this is around interoperability. We have the FAIR cookbook. We have, the capability maturity model. We have data utility frameworks. We have, data standards all around this. And this is all about interoperability. But it still doesn't work. This is an example of a real life situation where we had data that is highly curated, indexed in multiple data repositories, metadata was collected. This was a hospital data set that was highly used for decades along, and it took this team 2.5 years to request access to 4 data sets from 3 different data custodians in the UK. And you can see probably a little delay called COVID right at the end there. That is minuscule compared to the amount of time, and all of the dots and arrows are all the interactions that you have to do with multiple different data custodians. Right now, we live in a world where we have a pairwise operation between I request a data set, I request a data set. The world is going to a place where AI requires all of the data sets integrated together. This is going to be the reality. And be prepared to wait for 2.5 years to request access to the data. So interoperability is not just about data interoperability or technical interoperability. It's about governance interoperability. It's about policy interoperability. Understanding that it takes a multiple layers of interoperability to actually make this work. So again, I don't have a solution. It's a rant, as I said. But here's a thought. How do you go about building it? And I'm stealing an idea from actually Unix, right? The Unix philosophy, modular systems that all interoperate with each other. So if we, let's say Sage says, we will build the governance service for the entire ecosystem. Anybody can reuse it, implement it whichever way you want. It's compatible with every other system. Somebody else builds something else. Each component interacts with each other. Rather than trying to focus on building the entire building, we give you a blueprint on how to build one thing once and reuse that. That's the dream, right? It's not going to happen, but that's the dream. I'm telling you, this is how we can build it, stealing ideas from Unix and the Odyssey legend principles. Now, here's a set of tools. Most of the folks focus on these other things, but the things around legal frameworks and governance and things, oh yeah, that's lawyers. Those guys are the ones that'll solve all of that. We want to do the sexy data stuff and the technical stuff and the cloud compute stuff and the Docker container stuff and all of the AI stuff, because the governance stuff, yeah, that's just paperwork, right? Somebody else. Without that layer, it's not going to work. Think about your Linux, Unix operating system. Without ACLs, not going to happen, right? So remember, all of those things are important. So how do you pull all of that together? You pull that in the framework of FAIR, but when we say, oh, we need to do computability, what does that mean? Here's a set of services, here's a set of components that is being designed to work with each other. So small modular components that are composable with each other, that separate mechanisms from policy. Again, I'm rehashing the Unix philosophy. This is not new. This is part of the Unix philosophy that I'm trying to recreate. But what do you get from that? So there's a very apocryphal story ages ago when Donald Knuth was challenged to write a program to do, term frequency. This is a classic search engine. And he wrote the most beautiful literate programming code, which took him about 10 pages to write in Pascal, that did the entire analysis and produced a term frequency document. Doug McElroy wrote 1 line of bash. And that is the power of composability and modularity. Each tool was allowed to do one thing alone, and you had protocols that allowed it to communicate with the next tool, with the next tool, with the next tool to get the result. Every platform builds this beautiful ivory tower of things that all work together just for itself. And the way you interoperate is to build another ivory tower and another. Focus on interoperability and you'll find your ivory towers become a lot usable, a lot more supercharged. So with that, I'll stop. My 2 talks are over. So I want to acknowledge the entire AD Knowledge Portal team and Sage and Synapse. It's a village that brings all of this together. We have a large amount of funding from the NIA, who helps us do all the unsexy stuff, do all of the boring stuff, so that we can help researchers like you to do the fantastic science that you do. Again, these are also the acknowledgements from the Exceptional Longevity Data Management Coordination Center as well. Thank you very much.
So we have some time for some questions, and that was a very interesting point at which you ended the talk. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions.
I'm not going to the rant part yet because that
Sure.
was great. I can add to that rant, so I'm not going to do that. But my curiosity was, you say that you take data and then curate it. How many resources? Because in our world, part of the world, the curation part is limited by the resources we have.
Yeah.
So how much do you input into that, and how much of that is human resource that you're using for that curation? Is it manual, digital? How does it happen?
Half our organization's data curation
Wow.
team.
Okay.
Yeah. We're about 120 odd people, about close to about half, purely focused on data curation, data annotation, data coordination, chasing people because they've left the organization, emailing people, setting up meetings, understand what is that actual field that you actually put down that you haven't given to us, so that we can do it. It's a labor intensive job. We're slowly moving towards using AI for a lot of the manual lift, but it's not enough. It's always going to need a human in the loop, because we need to get a lot of that information right. So yeah, I mean, EBI is a good example. EBI has about 900 odd people, out of more than 900 people, but I would say about 600, 700 is data curators that sit and do the boring, unsexy work. And the reason for that is the scientists don't want to do it. Right? Ideally, the ideal scenario is to actually integrate that into the research pipeline itself. And it's not that they don't want to do it. It's the incentives are not aligned to allow them to do it. So,
Thank you.
Justin, or
Oh, will I go first? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love the rant. I love the rant. This is what interests me. Let me ask you one specific question and maybe one more general one. Number one, this is purely from my ignorance, right? Things like Sparkle endpoints.
Mhm.
People are still keen on them. That's kind of an interoperability answer in a way. Do you feel those don't work? What's your opinion on that?
Doesn't matter. Does Sparkle, REST, Protobuf, RPC, Corba, does it matter in the world of AI anymore? You can just ask an AI agent system to say, go and talk to this API, work out what the thing is, and just get the information that you need. So I know it's again coming across as a rant, but my point is those interfaces are no longer really that critical. It used to be, I agree, because Sparkle and the relationships that you could model with RDF that was underneath Sparkle, and the amount of semantic expansion that could be done through Sparkle was very powerful at the time when we didn't have things like AI. Nowadays, you just point an AI system to any API and say, okay, go and read that API, go get the documentation. If you don't understand Sparkle, go and read the Sparkle documentation and get me the answer that I'm looking for. Yes, there are issues there. I'm not disagreeing with you, but these things don't matter anymore. At least I feel as though it's easier. I used to be the head of AI for the UK government, by the way, but what I'm saying is that use AI. So the question I used to ask organizations who implement AI is, are you using AI because you can, or are you using AI because you must? The latter is the most important part. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So these kind of things, especially when things that are undifferentiated innovation, it's really hard for you to get access to data. Give that to an automation system and get that automated so that you can focus on your, core innovation. So long-winded answer to say Sparkle may matter, but as an API interface.
So this kind of brings me on to the more second general point, I guess, and maybe I get the sense here is that is the problems more about the problems of getting access? You know, this like 4 years to or 3 years to get access to 4 data sets, right? Is that what you see as the core issue? Not so much the technology. It's like, okay, you've got an API, used to be difficult, but now we have AI to magic it all away. I'm being a bit facetious there, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So is it now more?
Yeah, because that's the only thing that AI can't touch at the moment. Everything else, data can be automated to a certain extent. Yes, there are still issues in terms of reliability and bias. Technology can be automated as long as you have a good software engineering team. Governance and legal stuff, that's hard. That's the big bottleneck that I see coming down the pipe. And if we don't address that and brush it under the carpet, as we always do and we always have, I don't see unleashing AI is going to ever happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I want to pivot just a little bit on that, because I love that image where you put up the 4 data sets and the path that it took to get through the first yellow bar at the top was dealing with your own university.
Yep.
And then the next and so forth. And it really does speak to the need for unified governance somehow. But it also speaks to the problem of doing it because it's a political one.
Yeah.
All right. The accountability is distributed. The people who hold the data are accountable for certain uses of it. The university where you work is accountable for some of the things that you do. It's hard to get shared governance.
Yeah.
And you threw up your hands a second ago about even the possibility of it, but I want to remain optimistic and think that especially what SAGE does, which is trying to have uniform governance documents and things that people can adopt easily, might actually get us to the point where, like in your AD example, where if my university says I'm a bona fide researcher, the door just opens to different data sets and the like.
Yep.
You think that's because of the shared power / responsibility questions? Do you think that's even possible? I mean, you talked about going over jurisdictions.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible.
How do we do it?
I think it's definitely possible, and we have. When I say we, in a previous organization did it, right? So in HDI UK, we implemented a streamlined access request process for HDI UK. Got every single data custodian into a room and said, right, you're going to not come out of this room until you agree what the shared governance process is. We'll give you tea and biscuits for the 2 days, but you have to come up with a plan, right? We need to do something similar, but not just at at a national level, but at an international level, on what we do need to do. There's only 5 questions, right? We use the 5-stage framework in the UK, but there's only 5 questions that any data custodian really asks you. Who are you? What research project are you doing? What data do you need? Where are you doing the analysis? And what outputs you generate? Safe people, safe projects, safe data, safe settings, safe outputs. That's it, right? It's not complicated. We make it complicated, right? Because legal folks come in and we come in and say, right, okay, this is, what about this? What if I take a screenshot of this data set? What then? These are all edge cases. It's never happened. The probability of it happening is actually very low. And we still spend a lot of time and energy trying to debate, we need to defend against this edge case that never is going to happen, and then stop ourselves from doing all of the other things that is really important. So I think it can happen, but not because of AI, despite AI, because it's actually people sitting in a room to agree what the protocol is. And in fact, once you agree on the protocol, you can then bring in AI, because that then becomes an AI agent. You can use that protocol and say, okay, go and automate this. So I need to do this research, write me a research protocol for this, and I can now implement it. So I think it's definitely possible, but we need the willpower to get everybody in a room to agree.
So that's a great talk and great set of slides, Susheel. The one question that comes to my mind is, what advice do you have, given today's landscape, to those that are generating data? What should they be doing? Because you don't want them getting frustrated and not paying attention because we don't have the perfect scenario of the world.
Yep.
But in the interim, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, focus on what data you're collecting, why you're collecting it, what is the the purpose of collecting it. So, and make it very clear so that it's accessible not for you. So we as scientists tend to do this because we document it for ourselves, right? We need to document it for another person who may not be an expert in your field. What is it that you're collecting? Why you're collecting it? And how are you going to disseminate that information to elsewhere? So metadata is important, but also understanding deeply the ethics of data collection, the governance of data collection, and what is the intended use of that data going forward. So I'll give you another example, right? So in the US, we don't really have a privacy law as such. In the UK, we have UK and EU, we have GDPR. Now, the gold standard for consent for access, data access in the US is informed consent. In the UK, it's the third. It's only one of the legal bases. There's other legal bases which you can use to access data, right? Public interest is one. Legitimate use is another one. These actually are easier for you to do. During COVID, for example, we could run analysis on 68 million patients without asking a single person about their informed consent. That's because we had the Section 251 and all the rest of it. But that's my point. We can do it, and we can do it fast. It's just that we choose not to, and there are mechanisms that you can use to simplify this. But to answer your point, there's a lot you can do just to make sure that you understand what it is you're collecting, why you're collecting it, how you're collecting it, and for whom. Because ultimately, there's only one person that's the most important person in any research project. That's the patient who contributed that data to you, or that member of the public. That's the only important person there. You are a custodian of their data that you're using for your research to help them or the future versions of them.
I'm gonna, I don't know if this is on, but I'm gonna just follow up with the rant a little bit more, because that's fun, of course.
Microphone.
I guess it really just comes down to what are some things that we can start doing now that would help address both the applicability of AI and just kind of the human level interoperability, because I feel like there are really honestly kind of stupid steps, like just having more better documentation at that point, because there's plenty of AI methods that just are not capable of handling data in an interoperable way for literally the same reasons that people can't. They just don't know what it is.
Yep.
Do you think there's anything else in that same category that we can kind of start engaging with immediately?
Yeah, I think there's multiple levels. I think there's lots of great points that you've explored there. I'd probably give you one more layer. I think there needs to be an incentive provided by the funders themselves, right? To say, we're not funding your research, right? Because what happens is they fund the research, and the research then funds the platform, right? No, fund the platform, right? And make sure your focus is to make sure that platform is available for everyone to use for multiple research types. So there's one that layer, and then you get into your the rants that you made, which is around documentation, making sure these components are there. Typically what happens is, even ourselves, we look across the world and say, okay, we need to build this component. Who else have built it? Oh, all of the components there, they've not built X. So it's a bit of NIMBYism, right? What we'll do is we'll just re-implement the whole thing ourselves, because X is important to me, but the other letters of the alphabets I don't have. Now you have multiple different implementations of the same thing, but actually we've wasted money, the taxpayers' money, actually our money, to fund two different projects that do probably 80% of what everybody needs, but and the only way is to iterate and keep building, giving money to those pieces, rather than saying, no, as a funder, I'm going to incentivize you to work together to build one piece of software, one documentation, one protocol, so that everybody can benefit from it. So there's a bit of a, it's a chicken and egg. Yes, there are things that we can do as a community within, ISMB and ECCB, but there are also things that needs to be incentivized. Otherwise, it's human behavior. We won't do it, right? So If I was in an academic organization, right, what do I get for writing a standard or a protocol? Nothing. I don't. There's no incentive for me to do so. I'm only incentivized to write papers most of the time.
Well, it is the end of the day,
Yep.
and that's not the point where we want to leave the discussion.
no,
but
no.
please find him for a further conversation, because I'm sure it was cathartic, and it
Yes.
was nice to
Thank you.
hear,
Thank you
of course.
for indulging me. Thank you for indulging me.
Once again, thank you to all the presenters, and